The house was unusually quiet, the silence broken only by the distant hum of the refrigerator. Avery, whose husband Julian was away on a business trip, found herself alone with her thoughts. Her 21-year-old daughter Jasmine had gone out with friends, leaving Avery to navigate the emptiness of the house. In the solitude, Avery's mind wandered to memories and desires she had long suppressed. She retreated to her bedroom, the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her. As she closed the door, the familiar sense of isolation and longing washed over her. She couldn't help but seek solace in the privacy of her room. Unbeknownst to her, Jasmine returned home earlier than expected. Curiosity piqued by the unusual quiet, she decided to check on her mother. As she approached Avery's bedroom, she heard a soft, rhythmic noise. Peering through the crack in the door, she saw her mother alone and vulnerable. The sight was both shocking and unexpectedly intimate. Jasmine stood frozen, her heart racing. She had never seen her mother in such a raw, unguarded state. The moment was fleeting, yet it left an indelible mark on her. Overwhelmed by a mix of confusion and curiosity, Jasmine quietly retreated to her own room. The next morning, the air in the house was thick with unspoken tension. Avery, sensing that something was amiss, approached Jasmine with cautious concern. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle but tinged with anxiety. Jasmine hesitated, her eyes meeting her mother's. "I saw you last night," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to, but I did." Avery's heart sank. She had always prided herself on maintaining boundaries, but the moment had slipped through her fingers. "I'm sorry, Jasmine," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't realize you were home." To her surprise, Jasmine's expression softened. "It's okay," she murmured. I don't know how to feel about it." Over the following weeks, their relationship shifted in ways neither of them could have anticipated. They began to confide in each other, sharing secrets and vulnerabilities that had long been hidden. The bond between them grew stronger, but it was tinged with a complexity that neither fully understood. One evening, as they sat on the couch, the silence between them heavy, Jasmine reached out and took Avery's hand. "Mom, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice low and hesitant. Avery's heart raced. "What is it, Jasmine?" Jasmine's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of fear and determination. I can't stop thinking about what I saw that night. I know it's wrong, but I can't deny how I feel." Avery's breath caught in her throat. "Jasmine, we need to talk about this. It's important." Jasmine nodded, her voice trembling. "I know, but can we just be honest with each other? Just for a little while." Avery hesitated, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. But the look in Jasmine's eyes, the raw vulnerability, pulled at her heart. "Okay," she whispered. That night, they found themselves drawn to each other in a way that was both frightening and inevitable. In the darkness of Avery's bedroom, the world outside seemed to fade away. Jasmine's touch was tentative at first, but it quickly grew more confident as Avery responded with a depth of emotion she hadn't known she possessed. Their kisses were soft and exploratory, each touch igniting a fire within them. Avery's hands moved over Jasmine's body, feeling the smoothness of her skin, the curve of her hips. Jasmine's fingers traced the lines of Avery's face, her neck, her shoulders, as if trying to memorize every inch of her. The room was filled with the sound of their breathing, the occasional murmur of their lips brushing against each other. Avery's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of guilt and desire overwhelming her. But in that moment, all she could focus on was the connection between them, the way Jasmine's touch made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. Jasmine leaned in, her lips brushing against Avery's ear. "Is this wrong?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Avery closed her eyes, her breath catching. "Yes," she murmured, "But I can't stop." And so they continued, their bodies moving in a slow, sensual dance. The feel of Jasmine's skin against hers, the way her daughter's lips tasted, the sound of her breathless gasps, all of it was intoxicating. Avery felt a rush of heat flood her and she couldn't resist the pull. Jasmine's hand slid down Avery's back, her touch sending shivers down her spine. Avery's breath hitched as Jasmine's lips trailed down her neck, her tongue flicking out to taste her skin. The sensation was electric, making Avery's head spin. "Jasmine," Avery whispered, her voice a mixture of desire and uncertainty. "We shouldn't," but Jasmine's hands were already sliding up to cup her face, pulling her into another deep, passionate kiss. The world around them seemed to blur. The only thing that mattered was the intensity of their connection. Avery's hands moved to Jasmine's shirt, her fingers trembling as she began to unbutton it. Jasmine's breath came out in ragged gasps as Avery's hands explored her bare skin, the smoothness and warmth making her heart race. Jasmine's own hands moved to Avery's blouse, her fingers deftly undoing the buttons, revealing the delicate lace of her bra. They fell back onto the bed, their bodies entwined, the heat between them almost unbearable. Jasmine's lips found Avery's again, her tongue slipping past her lips, deepening the kiss. Avery's hands moved over Jasmine's body, her touch gentle but insistent, as if trying to memorize every curve and line. The room was filled with the sounds of their breathing, the soft rustle of clothing, and the occasional moan. Avery's heart pounded in her chest, the intensity of the moment overwhelming her. Jasmine's hands moved down to the waistband of Avery's pants, her touch hesitant but determined. "Avery," Jasmine murmured, her voice a strained whisper. "Are you sure?" Avery's eyes met Jasmine's, her heart aching with the weight of their actions. "I'm sure," she whispered back, her voice trembling. "But we need to be careful." Jasmine nodded, her hands sliding down to push Avery's pants down, exposing her bare skin. Avery's breath caught in her throat as Jasmine's fingers brushed against her most sensitive spot, sending a jolt of pleasure through her. She gasped, her hands gripping the sheets as waves of sensation washed over her. Jasmine's touch was both tender and bold, her fingers moving with a confidence that surprised Avery. She leaned in, her lips trailing down Avery's body, her tongue flicking out to taste her skin. Avery's body arched, her breath coming out in ragged gasps as Jasmine's touch sent her spiraling into a realm of pure sensation. The intensity of the moment was almost too much to bear. Avery's hands moved to Jasmine's hips, pulling her closer, their bodies moving in a slow, sensual rhythm. Jasmine's breath was hot against her skin, her touch sending shivers down her spine. The world around them faded away, leaving only the two of them lost in a whirlwind of desire and need. But as the night wore on, the weight of their actions began to settle in. The intimacy they shared, though powerful, was laced with a deep sense of unease. Avery lay awake, her heart heavy, as Jasmine's even breathing beside her signaled that she had fallen asleep. The next morning, the tension in the air was palpable. They avoided each other's eyes, the unspoken questions hanging between them. Finally, Avery gathered the courage to speak. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but filled with resolve. Jasmine nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and resignation. "I know," she whispered. They sat down on the couch, the distance between them both physical and emotional. "This can't continue," Avery said, her voice firm. "We're family, and what we did, it's crossing a line we shouldn't cross." "I know," she whispered, but it felt so real. Avery reached out, taking Jasmine's hand. "It does, but it's not healthy. We need to find a way to step back and rebuild our relationship on solid ground." Jasmine nodded, her voice shaking. "I want to, but it's hard. I feel like I'm losing a part of myself." Avery squeezed her hand. "I understand, but we have to do what's best for both of us. We need to seek help." They started seeing a therapist who guided them through the complexities of their emotions and helped them set healthy boundaries. The sessions were challenging, filled with moments of pain and discomfort, but they both committed to the process. As the weeks turned into months, Avery and Jasmine began to see progress. They learned to communicate openly and honestly,